Hello, and welcome to Using Technology to Improve Your Service, how Google's GSuite for Nonprofits can help your EMS or fire service. My name is Frederick Rams. I'm the Chief of Operations at Springwater Wayland EMS. I've been active in volunteer EMS since 1994 and have had, several years of paid EMS experience as well. Currently, I'm also a full-time senior computer support technician at my local school district. I've been working in the information technology sector full-time since 2000. I've been supporting G Suite full-time in an educational environment since 2018, and my agency, SWEMS, has been using Google's G Suite for nonprofits since 2016. I'd like to point out that you're going to see G Suite and Google Workspace kind of used interchangeably in this time period right now because they're rebranding it. So if you see those two terms, they're kind of the same product. A few differences here and there, but pretty much the same. First thing you have to know is how do you qualify your agency for the Google for Nonprofits program? It is only available to 501c3 not for profit organizations. Fire departments and EMS services that are 501c3s are classified as emergency services by Google and are eligible. TechSoup handles the validation process for our applications. We'll touch on TechSoup later at the end of the presentation. And your agency must have a domain name to link to the G Suite account. We'll touch on that a little bit later as well. What are some of the benefits of G Suite for nonprofits? My agency has been using G Suite for quite a while. It's been very successfully used. It helped us during the pandemic. Every member is issued their own professional email at swems.org as soon as they're accepted as a member. Google Drive, we use that to store our organizational documents in a secure shared environment. Members have access to it. It's very open. We do have secure areas that only leadership has access to. Google Docs, Sheets, Slides, they're the web-based productivity suite that doesn't cost anything as part of the main G Suite for nonprofits. That's roughly equivalent to Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. Groups is email distribution list in a very high-level look that can be used for leadership groups, committees. We have an all members group so that if we wanted to send a message to all members, that's how we do it. Calendar, schedule meetings, manage room usage. We use Calendar to make sure that our committees don't step on each other's toes when scheduling, our meeting room. Classroom, that's an online learning environment. It's wonderful. It makes life easy. You create your classes in Classroom, publish them, and your members, regardless of what shift their full-time job is, will be able to take your classes. We'll touch on that a little bit later as well. Google Chat, it's an internal messaging system that integrates with Gmail. So your Gmail app on the web, on a website version of Gmail, on your cell phone, has a chat feature built into it, and you could use that for quick chatting, just like you would use, any of the other chat features that are out there, like Messenger and stuff like that. Google Meet, video conferencing for up to 100 people. This was a lifesaver during the pandemic. We were able to keep in touch with all of our members. Didn't cost us anything extra. It helped a lot. Jamboard. It's a shared whiteboard for meetings. A shared place to be able to, you know, draw. I could draw a diagram for somebody, and we could share it across everybody who's not able to be there. They can only be there virtually. Okay. Touching on professional email. Every member gets assigned their own email address. Every member gets up to 30 gigs of cloud storage on their email. That's part of Google Drive for the individual member. The email has spam filtering included. It's an interface that a lot of people are already familiar with because Gmail is so popular. Basically, you take your Gmail account, you add another email account to it, put in your domains or your agency's email address there, and you switch between your personal and your agency account. Nice and easy. You could set up rules within Gmail to send emails to specific tags. They're like folders. So you can set up rules to automatically sort your email. Underneath that, I kind of categorize groups as part of email. That's the way we use it. There's a little bit more to it than that. But for the most part, I think that's how most agencies are going to use Google Groups. It's a distribution list. So we have a distribution list under groups for the board of directors. We have another one for the officers. Each committee has their own. We have one for all members. And basically, if I need to send a message to all the officers of my agency, I just do officers at SWEMS, and boom, every officer gets it. Um, Permissions and shared drive is also based on groups. So when we touch on shared drive, we'll explain that a little bit more. And you can see on the side there, it's just an image of Gmail. The way we handle folders. I have a folder for banquet bylaws, EMS charts messages, grants committee, IAR, Lens, which is a great tool for agencies in New York State. Um, you can see the chat features, and part of chat is also rooms. So you can have kind of like a chat room going too. Google Drive. You have personal drive folders for each member. And I think most people who use Google are somewhat familiar with that. What a lot of people are not familiar with, and what is a huge benefit to any nonprofit organization and any fire and EMS service, shared drives. Within Google Drive, you can have shared drives that basically, if a member leaves, those files will remain there. Whereas if you have a regular drive and you're just sharing from a regular Google Drive, if a member leaves and their account is disabled, those files that they created disappear. With a shared drive, that does not happen. It's better for an agency to use that kind of feature. The way we use it is we created a single shared drive that was called the members files. And you can see up in the right there, those are images from how our drives are set up, our shared drives. Um, Under the members drive, all members have read access, and our leadership group, the board members and the officers have access to write. Um, and then within that, we have subfolders. So we have a subfolder for agency policies. All of our policies, procedures, and everything are there. Organizational docs, that's where we put our forms, area maps, our logos, our reference sheets, a copy of the current bylaws. Those all go into that folder. Meeting minutes, obviously, all of our committees and all of our regular membership and board meetings, the minutes are posted there. Treasury reports, everything is open. Members want to see anything financially, it's there. SDS information, we have to have that on file. We have a printed book in our office, but we also have it electronically here. Within the committee folder, each committee has its own subfolder, and the chair of each committee has write access to their representative folder. So our building committee, our vehicle committee, um, our fundraising committee, our grant writing committee, they all have their own folders. Um, Within that, you could store anything you want, diagrams, docs, images, whatever you want. Um, we also have a folder for officer files. Each officer has their own folder with subfolders for each position. So, for example, our quartermaster, he has a folder underneath there. Underneath the quartermaster is all of our documents having to do with inventory, having to do with maintenance logs. That's there, and he has write access to it, but the regular memberships can still view it. The visibility that this gives the membership to our operations gives our members more ownership in the operations of the agency and gives people an interest in participating more in the administrative side of the organization. Additional shared drives that we've set up, and you can set them up any way you want. This is just the way that we've did it. Um, Archives. We created a separate drive just to store an archive of pictures and historical documents. That is basically only a couple people have access to write to it. Everybody has access to read to it. Um, my agency purchased a historical building. We have a lot of information from the previous owners, and we're storing that information, and that kind of cascaded to us creating this archive of all of our images that we've taken over the years. And it's just good for maintaining a history of the agency. CME program, continuing medical education for participating EMTs. That's limited access. Regular members don't have to see it. Our training officer manages it. Our EMTs have access to it, and go from there. The director's drive, shared drive, is limited to the board of directors for their business needs only. There's stuff that happens that the regular membership shouldn't be privy to or can't be privy to for legal reasons. That's a place for that to go. That's where the board members handle this stuff. We have an active junior program that's managed by the junior advisors, and that's where all the juniors can store their information. Our leadership folder there is where the board and officers use that for brainstorming ideas before going to the full membership. You come up with some ideas, you have ideas that you're bouncing back and forth. You got to put it somewhere. We put it there, share it out to, within our leadership group, kind of, tweak the ideas. And then when we are comfortable with it, we present it to the membership at a membership meeting, if it gets voted in, we move it over to the member files and implement it. Just a little bit way of managing things and setting expectations and, making sure that we don't confuse members about what's in operation and what's a draft. Our membership committee has limited access to allow open discussion about prospective members. It's only the members of the membership committee have access to that. So if there's personal information, the regular membership can't get into it. Again, every member also gets their own 30 gigabytes of drive storage and can share those files and folders to other individual members. So let's say I have a file that I want to share with, member, John Smith, for example. I could do that without having to go through the shared drive. We have a lot of flexibility with these features. The next feature I'm going to touch on is Google Calendar. It's a unified calendaring system. It's not too good for scheduling people for shifts, but it's great for scheduling personal calendars, group calendars, resources. Google has a great feature where you can manage within the Google GSuite, you can manage resources. So we have set up our training room and our meeting room as resources. We have our training kits, our Stop the Bleed kit, our CPR mannequin kits, all have their resource level. When we schedule an event, we can actually schedule usage of the Stop the Bleed kit and our meeting room. So we know that that room is in use, that kit is in use, and we know that that's not available. If we have several instructors for different things, if somebody wants to take a kit off site, they could schedule something, schedule the kit. We know it's not available for 6 to 8 p.m. on Tuesday, so we can't use it for a class in house. Just a way of managing our equipment roster and making sure that all of our training officers are, training team, I should say, knows what's going on with all the equipment and how all of our committees can schedule our meeting room to make sure they're not stepping on each other. It's a great tool. It helps with organization, especially when you have people working various shifts, and that's the way a lot of our agencies are nowadays. We have members from multiple shifts coming in, and it's hard to maintain communication. That's what all this is all about. How do you create an event in the calendar? Name, date, time. The screen that you see in the top right is what a meeting looks like. You have the option to schedule a Google Meet. It's integrated right in here. You schedule that up. You select the guests, select the rooms. You add a description. When you save the event, it's going to ask you if you want to notify the guests of the meeting. You do that. They save it to their calendar. When the time comes for the meeting, they click on Join with Google Meet. There you go. Very straightforward to be able to get into a Google Meet session. When you select guest, you'll be able to see a listing of free busy times for each guest. You could select a time that works for everybody. So, like, I'll select officers, like, imaged here. I'll look at the officers and I'll, look at it and say, okay, I want to schedule an officers meeting for Tuesday at 6 p.m. And then I see, my training captain has, a CPR class that night. Okay, I can't schedule here. Let's move it to Wednesday. That's where using a calendar really helps with scheduling. Google Meet. This really helped during the pandemic, the opening stages of the pandemic. We were able to switch all of our meetings over, our trainings, everything. We were able to switch virtually basically within a couple of days. Once we figured out what was going on, we jumped right on it. What we did, we ran all of our sessions over Meet. We had limited leadership or the instructors for the classes at the base, social distance at the base. And we also did allow some of our members who had poor internet at home. We're in a rural area. You get up in the hills, the internet signal is not great up there. Spectrum does not get up into the far reaches of the hills outside the village too well, stuff like that. They came to the base, they sat down, social distanced. We maintained the 6 foot distancing, had our table separated in the meeting room, and ran from that. What we set up in the meeting room, we received a grant back in February. We got a 55-inch display mounted to the screen. We added a wide angle webcam. So, I mean, this was just perfect timing that we got the grant, but we added this webcam right on top of the screen. It's aimed covering the entire room. We see all the participants from home up on the 55-inch screen, and those of us who are present in the meeting get to, be seen by those people as well. And what we found worked best is we had one member who watched the screen for chat requests or hands up icons so that anybody at home could participate while we continue running the session. These were phenomenal for this throughout the beginning of this pandemic. Okay, the next feature we're going to touch on is docs, sheets, and slides. Included, no charge. Use it. Has an intuitive interface. Most of I can't say most, but a large majority of your school districts are using it. If you're in an area that your school district uses Google GSuite for education, ask your juniors to help you work with this product. They're used to it because they're already using it in school. Once you create a document, you could share with other members. You can collaborate. There's a built-in commenting system within docs and sheets, so you can actually comment back and forth within the document. So, myself and the officers, we work different shifts at our full-time jobs. I could look at a document and say, well, maybe you should do this change here. My captain comes in and, when he's off, tomorrow morning or whatever, and he's like, okay, good idea, I'm going to integrate it. It's built into it. You are able to import Microsoft Office files into Google. There are some limitations. We found that slide decks from PowerPoint do not import well. So we create a slide deck natively in Google. Word processing usually comes over. Letterhead doesn't always come over too well. The images don't always fit exactly the way you expect. But it does bring over all the text. You might have to do some minor editing afterwards. We use Sheets to manage our inventory, our rig checks, our statistics exports from US charts, and I am responding. We do not export any patient information into Google at all. We don't want to have the HIPAA situation. Everything that has patient information stays within EMS charts and under their security system. The only thing we export out of there is statistics. We use docs for almost everything else. Documents, letters, pretty much anything you would use a regular word processor for, and slides for presentations like this one. And no charge. Google Classroom. This is something that we actually started using partway into the pandemic. I'm sure you're familiar with your yearly required training, your regular monthly presentations. We basically created a classroom for our yearly training that everybody has to do, our HIPAA class, our bloodborne pathogens, and so on. Each class has a quiz, so we have proof that they completed the class and we know when they did it, so we can reuse that class every year for the yearly required training. Makes our life easy. Shift workers, again, that's a huge thing. We are able to create one training session and then time shift it because our instructors don't have to be present for it anymore. So somebody who works night shift and can't come to your regular evening meetings or evening drills, right here, you do it here. And it saves us a lot of time, a lot of headache. And with email, if they have a question, we respond via email, and it works pretty well. You can create quizzes, other activities to track participation. We're planning on using Classroom even after the pandemic. And for drills that require hands-on activity, we do the presentation in Classroom, and then the members schedule a time with an instructor. And then that gets checked off that the activity was done in Classroom. We document that they did it in person, the in-person portion of the class. The most recent thing we did with that was the new child restraint system that we got. We created a 10-minute video on how to use it. sent it out via Classroom with a small quiz, 5-question quiz, I think it was. And then we had them schedule a time to come in, and we went through groups of 2 or 3 at a time so that we didn't have any kind of COVID related, contact issues. We kept everything at a minimum, and physically went over the process of using the new child restraint system on our cots, documented it, and we're good to go. We put it into service during COVID. Another feature, this is called Forms. It's used for quizzes in Classroom, so this is how you use it, but we use it also for virtual meetings. So, other organizations like ours, you vote members in. How do you handle your secret ballot when people are at home versus in the building? We use Google Forms. We selected the option to restrict users within the trusted organization, limit to one response, but we turned off collect email addresses. So everybody only has one vote. We make sure it's not open to the public, but we also don't collect email addresses, so it just gives us a tally. It works great. We do have the option of using it for elections. We actually used that this past year with elections. And we also use it for surveys. The other features that we're looking at adding to, we haven't implemented it yet, was information forms on our website. We don't have anything to order, any kind of ordering, but you can use it for ordering. Let's say you're doing chicken barbecue or whatever. I've seen it used for things like that, where people can order their chicken barbecue. You could collect the information and, arrange for some kind of payment at that point. There's no payment built into forms, but on a local level, at least you know who's coming and you can get a good count ahead of time. Comment form for public events. There's a lot of possible uses. It's just a matter of figuring out how you want to use it. I'd be ecstatic to hear how other agencies use it. If you have ideas that work, throw it our way too. On the back end, all these features have to be managed. Okay, the GSuite admin console is easy to navigate. Google has created a very large support section. They have hundreds of thousands of clients using this. They have huge school districts using it, businesses. They've created a good structure to support you in managing GSuite. What we did was created organizational units to manage permissions. Juniors get their own email, but we have restrictions on their emailing out of agency to protect them because they're juniors. We have organizational units, also called OUs, for leadership, members, and juniors. What we did within the groups section is anything sent to a group email could be reviewed from the interface at groups.google.com. That's a whole other aspect that we don't really have the time to go into, but you can actually go into groups and see what emails were sent. We use that feature to follow up on committees in case the emails are deleted. So if a committee sent out an email and somebody said they didn't get it, they deleted their response, they weren't sure, we can go in there and see who actually sent the email. But we also use the groups to assign permissions. So after elections, all you have to do is move a user into or out of the leadership group, and their permissions in Drive change. So our leadership group in Google Shared Drive that I showed you earlier, that's based on who's a member of the board of directors or who's a member of the officers group. Once you're a member of that group, you get access to that drive. Once you are out of that group, you lose access to that drive. Then you have buildings and resources here. This is where you create your rooms and other items that could be used in the calendar. The devices image there, we don't use that feature here. If you were to purchase Chromebooks, there is a license fee for that, a one-time license fee to add Chromebooks to the environment, but you can manage your Chromebooks and track them from within the Google admin console. The apps tab is how you manage all your settings within Gmail, Drive, all that stuff. You can control your permissions, your settings, your spam folder, your spam filtering levels, all within the apps area. Okay, now, if you think that Google for nonprofits is what you want for your agency, and I do recommend it, Microsoft has a similar product. There is a little bit more of a ramp-up cost to some of the Microsoft products. Google for nonprofits at this level is free. Google for Nonprofits does have a enterprise level that there is a fee per user. It adds some features. We can get into that if you have questions, but I don't see a need for it for most of our smaller agencies. So when you set up Google for nonprofits, like I mentioned earlier, you have to have your own domain name. You need to own it, register it. The cost is between $8 and $50, depending a year on the registrar and the domain type that you use. It's best to use .org because that's the common thing for nonprofits. But you can get .com, .net, .us. There's a bunch of different options. You could use GoDaddy, Namecheap, or even Google Domains. You could buy domains there. But you have to have a domain name. The reason being is that is how your email links to Google. So when you have a domain email like we have at SWEMS, that has to be tied, that email gets tied to Google through the domain name. So you sign up for Google for Nonprofits through TechSoup.org. Email pointers, you're going to get the instructions on how to change your DNS settings. DNS is your domain name service. This is a little bit technical, and if you have somebody who's a little bit more technical, invite them in to help you with this. But you have an MX record, which is your email service record within your DNS settings. That has to be pointed to Google, and Google will give you those settings that you need to change within your registrar. The next thing you have to think about, marketing your agency on the web, you should have your own website. You can use any web host you want. You can pay for it. You can get things anywhere from $2 up to $100, $200 a month. We use a donated service from DreamHost. It works well. They donate the service to nonprofits. You can also install free web design tools on most places. We use what's called LAMP, Linux, Apache, PHP, and MySQL type hosting. So it's a Linux-based environment. We use WordPress on top of that, with some modifications and plugins to get what we want at our website. There's a lot of resources available for WordPress. It's easy to use. It's easy to update. You can set up multiple users, so you're not limited to only one person updating the website. That's the way I would recommend an agency getting into this as a new project to go. But there's plenty of other options out there. Drupal. I could probably think of half a dozen different web design tools off the top of my head. That's a completely different conversation though. Set up everything. Once that's done and your MX records point to the Google system, usually takes up to 24 hours for that to happen. Then you can set up everything in the admin console, follow the help files that Google has already set up. Other resources that we use through TechSoup. You've heard me mention TechSoup a couple times. TechSoup.org is a wonderful resource for nonprofits. They manage the Google for Nonprofits program. We subscribe to the Dell Purchase program. We purchase our Intuit QuickBooks through them. And we also purchase access to GrantStation, which is a grant finding tool through TechSoup. Me being a techie, I also purchase other technology through other sources that I get good prices for. Just because I have some contacts in the field and whatnot. But this is a great tool. TechSoup has a lot of training offers out there for you as well for those less tech inclined. They're basically a clearinghouse of over 100 technology programs and donation programs for nonprofit organizations. This is just a quick list that they provided me. Google, Microsoft, Dell, Adobe, Autodesk, antivirus tools. Mobile Beacon is hotspots. Pretty much anything within technology, they have an option. Not all of them are available to every type of organization, but contact TechSoup if you can't figure it out, and they will walk you through it. They're very good about it. That's what they do. For more information about TechSoup, here's several web links you could use. I'll leave this up for a minute. The main website is www.techsoup.org. But they do have a managed IT program. They have articles. They have blogs, cloud services. They have their own forums. So if you have questions and want to talk to somebody or email, I should say not really email, but post in a forum in a community type setting. There's a lot of resources out there. They do have discounted refurbished hardware. product donations, webinars. They have their own page they set up for COVID-19 resources. It's a great resource. Utilize it. Save money wherever you can. Thank you for watching this presentation. Good luck with your setup. Good luck with improving the technology of your agency. If you have any questions, you can email me at chief@swems.org. Or, if you want to see how our website is set up to see what WordPress can do, visit our website, www.s-wems.org. Thank you.